So for today, we're going to be dealing with the topic of social engineering and the web browser. And one of the most important technologies ever invented and still very much impactful in the daily lives of countless individuals is the internet, and I'm sure you're going to agree with that. Now, web browsers serve as a software gateway through which users can access this resource, request and receive information as well. Now, hence, billions of people around the world use web browsers in order to access the internet with Google Chrome, Safari, Internet Explorer, Firefox, name them, all of them being some of the most popular options. Now, as usual, this state of affairs has not been lost on cybercriminals, as Statista.com reports that web browsers constitute the second most commonly exploited application across the world as of the third quarter of 2019. So this is a very recent stat. Now, during the survey period, it was found that browsers accounted for 13.47% of exploit attacks. Wow. Now, hence the 8th episode of this series seeks to explore the ways malicious actors use browser attacks in conjunction, I like to say, it's holding hands with social engineering, how hackers use this to things to attack people. Now, this webinar will provide clarity on web browser attacks by explaining important browser concepts, describing the most popular or the most commonly targeted aspects of web browsers, which could include extensions, plugins, web applications, connections to online resources, and as well as vulnerabilities in the browser itself. This webinar will also briefly describe the way social engineering can be used in web browser attacks. And of course, we'll be touching on explaining the ways to harden your web browser, to make your web browser much more difficult to hack. In a show and tell demo, we're also going to be showing you how hooking a web browser with the browser exploitation framework, which is BEEF, can be done. And after a user clicks a phishing link that leads to a page containing the hook.js JavaScript file, what gets to happen after that. So we're going to be showing you that. And I'm in the company of a very competent person to take you through these lessons, to show you everything. And I'm going to be introducing him in a bit, but before I introduce him, still, let's have a bit of suspense here. Before I introduce him, I'd like us all to just drop a chat in the chat box and tell me what city you're joining this webinar from. It's usually interesting and exciting to see what cities we have in the house. So just drop a message, tell me what city you're joining us from. I am speaking from Lagos, Nigeria. We could have, like in our last webinar, we had people from Kenya, we had people from South France, we had people from just many places across the world, from Ibadan, from Abuja, different cities across the world. Hassanat is joining us from Ibadan. Welcome, Hassanat. Can we have more people just tell us where they're joining us from? Just interesting to meet a whole lot of people, and just know that we're receiving this information across multiple cities in the world. We have someone from Lagos, Nigeria. Daniel, welcome. Oh, Moses is joining us once again from Kenya. Moses, I noticed you're quite consistent. Thank you so much for always joining us. We have someone who is joining us anonymously from Abuja. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to have you all here. So the moment has come. I don't know if he wants me to say his name. I don't know if he wants me to say his name. I think he has that option, but right now his name is Radioactive. Radioactive, that's all you sort of would know about him. Until if he comes on and he says his name, great. But let's make welcome our guest speaker. She does unmute his mic and just begin to speak with us.
Hello. Hello, everybody. Can everybody hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Welcome.
Okay, Thank you for having me. My name is Radioactive Toby, aka Oluwatobi Afolabi, and I'm a cybersecurity analyst, and I'll be walking you through social engineering and web browsers. So nice to be here. Okay. Can I go ahead and start presenting?
Yes, please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Okay, cool. I didn't know it was that time already.
Like itching.
So I can't share my screen. It's disabled from here.
Okay, just give me a sec. Let me rectify that.
Okay.
Please check. Can you share now?
Okay, let me try. Yes, I can. Cool. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
All right, cool. So a brief introduction. My name is Oluwatobi Afolabi. I'm passionate about cybersecurity and also happens to be my profession. I work with Digis LLC as a security analyst. And this topic I find very interesting and very intriguing. I do this once in a while, have these types of virtual meetings with people and then show people how stuff actually happens, aside from hearing how it happens, but then actually being able to show people so that they understand the real implications of the actions that they take on the digital space and also in the cyberspace. So this is our agenda for this virtual meeting. So I'll briefly introduce myself as I did already. I already introduced myself. And then I'll go briefly into what web browsers are. Although we use web browsers on a daily basis, there are things that we already interact with. So I'll just give a little primer on web browsers and then move on to understanding the common browser security threats and also bring out some statistics on what happens with web browsers. And then I'll go into web browsers and social engineering, which is the core of what this webinar is about. I'll be doing a demo in the course of that session, and then I'll talk about how social engineering enables web browser-based attacks. And then I also highlight how you can stay safe and then you also do not get compromised and also how to harden your web browser. So yeah, this is me again. I work for Digis. Right now, I'm particularly interested and I also work within the space of security operations, threat intelligence, penetration testing. And then this is but a few of my interests. I know some people might be on this webinar thinking that they could social engineer me with some of these things I've highlighted, but none of my passwords is actually based on any of these things I'm interested in. So yeah, we try to hack me.
I like that caveat.
Hopefully, yeah, that's so. So yeah, moving forward, just to give a little primer on what web browsers are. So it's a web browser in simple terms is a piece of software that is used to access the internet. So we have our Chrome, we have Safari, we have Internet Explorer, we have Firefox, and so many of them. And even in recent times, some of those web browsers have been discovered to be stealing people's information or have been discovered to pry into people's privacy. So most often, a web browser can be used as a window, like a doorway into a person's, like our entire digital identity can be hijacked from our browser, like everything about you. If somebody wants to know where you live, if somebody wants to have access to your camera, if somebody wants to have access to your usernames, your passwords, your contacts, your web browser could be a gateway for that. So it's used to access the World Wide Web. So basically what a browser does is it retrieves information from the internet and then it displays it in a human readable format. Some of the underlying technology that powers a web browser, we have the rendering engine and then the hypertext markup language. So the rendering engine basically translates the information that is readily available on the World Wide Web into text, data, and images that we can see and read. And then the language that is used to enable that is called the hypertext markup language. So basically, in a nutshell, not to go into the overly technical details, that is what web browsers are. And on web browsers, you have your search engines and many other things that you can use your web browser for. Use it to read news, get access to information, log into your emails, and all of the fun and interesting stuff. So aside the fun and interesting stuff you can do with the web browser, how can your browser be a threat to your digital security? How can the browser be a way that an attacker can use to gain access to information it's not supposed to gain access to? Or how can your browser be exploited to basically own you as a person? Because imagine somebody having access to all of your passwords, like literally all of your passwords, your bank accounts passwords, your social media passwords. Imagine what power the person has over you at that point in time. Basically, he can lock you out. He can decide to not give you access to anything. And then he can also make away with your money and all of your life's work just gone like that. So basically, we need to understand the common threats that face web browsers. So the first and most popular one that people tend to know about are browser extensions and plugins. So browser extensions and plugins basically provide extra features that don't come by default on a web browser. So if you want to have an ad blocker, you don't want adverts to be popping up, you probably have to go install the extension. So the extension would be able to carry out all of those extra functionalities. If you want to have like Alexa rankings and all that stuff, if you want to have like a color picker within your web browser or like a password manager, you can easily install the extension. But these extensions often require special permissions to certain things that could be exploited. Let me just put it like that, that could be exploited by attackers. So let's take, for example, you find an extension, Grammarly, for example. Grammarly is only supposed to be able to detect grammatical errors, typographical errors, and then correct them. But then the moment you install Grammarly, you start seeing Grammarly asking for permission to use your camera. It raises a question, like, why does Grammarly need my camera? It's just supposed to work on rectifying grammatical errors. So most often, what attackers do is they find a way to create malicious extensions and browser plugins, and they upload them to the Google Chrome web store, where you often download extensions from. So you think you might be downloading a trusted extension. Meanwhile, that extension is actually a malicious one, or that plugin might be malicious. So most often, attackers like to use browser extensions to do things like mine cryptocurrency. Could use it to access all of your contacts. You could use it to exfiltrate data or information. Use it to record your audio without your knowledge. So extensions and plugins can be very tricky sometimes. So be careful when you try to install one. And that major issue that people often have with browsers, and is often a threat that a browser brings, is safe passwords and form information. Most often, we might become too lazy to want to remember our passwords. We just easily save password, save password, save password. So all of those passwords are stored within your browser. It's not like it's stored in some secure vault somewhere that can't be penetrated. It's basically stored on your browser. It's stored on your laptop. And if care is not taken, you can easily have all of your passwords stolen, both through physical access or remote access. But most popularly, or most of the attacks that I know of, often require physical access to be able to steal your passwords. The ones that require remote access involve things like tunneling and port forwarding, all of the technical stuff. But then the easiest and simplest way of extracting passwords from one's browser is with the use of certain malicious applications. And an example of that is web browser pass view. So web browser pass view originally was developed to recover lost passwords. So in case you have forgotten your password, you can easily use web browser pass view to extract all of the passwords from your browser and then you retrieve it. But that application has now been used malicious in a malicious way by bad guys. So basically, you install the application. Once you run it, it extracts all of the passwords from the browser in clear text. And another way is when you save your password in Chrome, and then you go to view password. If you are using a weak password on your Windows laptop, you have basically lost all of your other passwords because you lost guard with your Windows password. So if an attacker has access to your system, physical access, I mean, he opens your web browser, he goes to view passwords, and then your password is, for example, password 123. He can view all of the passwords of your social media profiles and then, just save it and then make away with the passwords. You also have redirects and pop-ups and pop-up ads. Ever been browsing on a website and then all of a sudden you see a browser an ad pop-up, quick way to become a millionaire, or how I earned $200,000 in less than 3 hours, or how this 21-year-old earns $500,000 per minute. And then in that moment, you're like, okay, I think I might want to take the fast lane. And then you click on the link, and all of a sudden you realize that your browser probably starts getting slow because the moment you clicked on that link, a dropper was installed on your laptop and it's starting to mine cryptocurrency, or you all of a sudden notice that your laptop is slow, or somebody has had access to some private information that they're not supposed to have access to. Or in the case of you clicking that link and then they ask you to enter your username and password, and you joyfully submit it because you obviously want to make money. That's where social engineering comes in. And then you click it, all of a sudden, you notice somebody has logged into your Gmail, he has logged into your Instagram, he's logged into almost every of your social media accounts, probably even logged into your company email. It will be at that moment you realize you have messed up, right? Just by clicking a pop-up ad. And also, and most importantly, we often hear about updating your software, update your applications. So you're not updating because you want the application to look more beautiful. You're updating the application because there might have been a certain vulnerability that was discovered, like a weakness, a flaw that was discovered that is associated with that version of software. And a patch has been released, like a security patch, to prevent that flaw from being exploited. When you decide to leave an outdated application running on your system for too long, it can become a risk, a very, very big risk, in fact, to you. If you notice recently, when people started using Zoom, all of a sudden people were finding different flaws associated with Zoom, and then Zoom started pushing out updates, even almost on a weekly basis. They were pushing out updates during this COVID-19 pandemic period, right? So it's very important that you update your software, keep it updated. Don't use an outdated browser. One of the examples I'll be showing today, like the security demo, would be as a result of using an outdated Chrome version. Actually, the vulnerability was recently discovered in 2020, and there was an exploit code that was readily available. And it's even more or less like a recent version of Chrome. Probably one or two of us even have that version of Chrome installed on our laptops right now. So it is very important that you keep your applications, your browsers, any application you use, try to keep them updated, not just for usability, but most importantly, security. Now to the statistics. What's a presentation without statistics? Right, so you have millions of browser-based attacks every day. Like, it is by the day. One of the most common attack vectors used by attackers or bad actors are web-based. And how do you access the web? Obviously through your browser. So there is a relationship between web-based attacks and browser-based attacks, because literally, if you're going to click on a phishing link, you most likely click it from your browser. If you're going to install a malicious plugin or a malicious extension on your browser, malicious extension rather, it will be from your browser. So there are like millions of browser-based attacks every day. In year 2012, you can see my screen, it says that there were nearly 1 billion browser-based cyber attacks repelled. Please take note of the word repelled. So those were the ones that Kaspersky found and were able to stop. How about the ones that weren't picked up by Kaspersky, and also the ones that happened on laptops or on systems that didn't have Kaspersky installed, like the antivirus solution or browser security solution? So this number definitely is way higher than this. So it says nearly 1 billion browser-based attacks in year 2012. Now, fast forward 5 years after, you would expect that, okay, technology has advanced, people are more security conscious and everything. But see, it's still rising. We have 1.2 billion in 2017, 1.9 billion in 2018, and you have a billion in 2019. Fine, it dropped, but this doesn't capture everything. Like, this doesn't capture the person who was probably compromised 2 days ago or 3 months ago that didn't report that they had been compromised through their browser. So a lot of things happen in browsers, and we need to be extra conscious of the things that we do, the types of applications or extensions that we grant permissions to. So now, the relationship between social engineering and web browser. So I would also provide a primer on social engineering to give you a better understanding of how it can be an enabler to web browser-based attacks. So social engineering basically uses influence and persuasion to manipulate people more often or deceive people into taking certain actions, right? So if I want you to do something that you shouldn't normally do, I could manipulate you into doing it based on your interests or based on your emotions. So I'll literally manipulate you into disclosing information you probably not disclose to me through social engineering. Let me give you an example. I'm trying to get into your browser, probably to carry out a man in the browser attack, right? I observe on Twitter or any social media page that you are a big fan of online courses. Every now and then, you post a certificate of a new course you did on Udemy. Like almost every time, anytime you make certain progress, you always put it up. Yo, check out the course I just completed and all that stuff. So I take note that, okay, you're an avid learner, you like to learn new things, and from the courses, I know the type of courses you'll probably be interested in. And then I sit down, I craft up a very, very good offer that can be very, very hard to resist. That, yo, check out this course. It's normally $1,000, but it's going for free for the next 10 hours. Subscribe, sign up or enroll immediately before the time runs out. So in that moment, you would probably want, based on your emotions and your desire to want that course or to learn, you probably just click on the link I sent to you. Meanwhile, that link is a malicious link that will be hooked to your browser and then give me access to your browser. And once I have access to your browser, I can intercept the information or anything you're communicating with every website, right? Or I can start up your webcam, or I could take screenshots of your pages. I could record your keystrokes, like everything you're typing would be recorded, and I'll be able to see everything you're typing from my own end remotely. Or you can kind of like see how social engineering plays a part in helping web browser-based attacks. Let me give you another very, very funny scenario. So recently, I have a friend, he works in a tech company, and then he just told me all of a sudden that he wants to install Internet Explorer 8. Like, Internet Explorer 8 came out like many years ago, and it's very well known for having a dozen of vulnerabilities associated with it. I was like, okay, why do you want to install Internet Explorer 8? He says there's an application that he wants to run that requires Internet Explorer 8 to work. It's only going to work with Internet Explorer 8. In my security mind, I already knew that, okay, there's something fishy going on here. Like, probably somebody's trying to gain access to your system remotely by exploiting most of the remote vulnerabilities associated with Internet Explorer 8. So I advised him, yo, you really don't need to install Internet Explorer 8. These are the security risks, and these are some of the concerns I have. Whatever application that requires you to install an outdated version of an operating system, or requires you to turn off your antivirus or turn off your firewall, those things raise red flags. So I kind of like told him to be aware of it, or even applications that just randomly request for them to be granted permission to your camera or granted permission to your location, and then they don't need it, right? Those things often raise red flags. So you should often look out for those types of things, especially when it comes to dealing with your browsers. So I've done most of the talking. Now I'm going to do the demo. Basically what I'm going to do with this demo is I have set up an attacking machine, which is Kali. Kali is a Linux distribution that is used for penetration testing. And then I've also set up a Windows operating system running Windows 10. So you probably think, yeah, Windows 10, safe, secure, everything locked down. But I'm going to exploit first. I'm going to just help me. I'll need your imagination here. I wasn't able to draft the email, but let's say, for example, somebody in an organization is a big lover of Udemy courses, and then I know he's a big lover of Udemy courses, like I previously explained. I'm going to send them a link to Udemy that's, yo, check out this free course. So now when the person takes that link and puts in their browser, a JavaScript will be executed in the background because the web page that is being hosted has a malicious JavaScript running. And then once it gets executed, it becomes hooked, and then I can view almost everything that the person is doing. I can take screenshots, can turn on their webcams. I can play sounds like just to scare the person remotely, but I'm not going to do all of that. Well, what I'm going to target is, okay, I want to know the type of browser that the person is using first, and also the version of the browser that is running. Is it vulnerable? Is it something I can attack? And then from there, after I discover that it is vulnerable, I will proceed to use Metasploit, an exploitation framework, to exploit that vulnerable browser version by compelling the victim again to click a new link. I hope it makes sense, but let me move on to the demo. But before we go into that, is there any questions so far? Or
okay, so yes, it does make sense what you're saying. If you have any questions, just drop your questions in using the Q&A button at the bottom of the chat window. At the end of the show and tell demo, I will start by asking you my questions first, and then we'll also take all the questions from the audience. So drop your questions or prepare them or have them handy. So just drop them once you finish it, and then we'll take them in the order they come. So go ahead.
Cool. So let me share my screen again. Can everybody see my screen? It's supposed to be showing my Kali page now.
Yes, we can see your Kali page.
Oh, good. All right. So as not to take too much of time, I already did the setup. I have BEEF. So BEEF is Browser Exploitation Framework, and it is used, like the name says, it's used in exploiting browsers and often used in web browser-based attacks. So I'm going to log in to BEEF now.
It's used by people who eat beef.
Okay. And my Windows 10 machine has gone off. Sorry, You have to be patient with me. Sometimes my laptop just likes to misbehave, especially when I'm doing presentations, not when I'm practicing. But when I'm doing presentations, it just decides to flip out on me and act up.
I can relate. I can relate, especially with virtual machines.
Okay. So I had this on a few minutes back. Can you help me unshare my screen while I?
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay, this is still freezing. I have to involve tax manager at this point. It's still freezing.
Okay, someone is suggesting that you tell us more about beef while you're trying to sort that out.
Okay. All right. So beef basically, it has, so most frameworks for exploitation and all that, like Metasploit and the rest, if you're familiar with Metasploit, it's an exploitation framework that has different models. So models are basically like mini applications. Let me just put it like that, like mini applications that target certain features of browsers. For example, within beef, there are hosts. There's like a host section. There is persistence and different mini functions like that. So under persistence, you have the option to carry out a man in the browser attack. So a man in the browser attack happens when you probably click on a malicious link, a JavaScript is executed, and then an attacker has access to your browser. So every time you interact with any website, your information is being routed through the attacker. So he can basically see every link you click. So when you try to log in on a website, he sees that you logged in on Facebook and then this is your username and password. Or he sees that you logged in on Twitter and then this is your username and password. Or he can track your history. So that's an example of persistence and a man in the browser attack. And then you also have hosts. So under the host, there are different things. Under host, you can kind of like communicate with every other system within the environment. So I am here in my house, and I have other systems on my network, right? And we have the attacker who has hooked beef to my browser. He can ping my network address, like pinging, like try to send information that's okay. I'm trying to look for every other system that is connected on that network, and I want to have information about them. So he uses my system as a point of entry to other systems on the network. That's another example of one of the host models under beef. And then you also have extra functionalities under the browser extensions, because certain browser extensions require permissions to like your camera and your microphone. And the extension module could easily, very, very easily be used to, start those things. Probably when you're not aware, the attacker will probably start up your camera, your webcam, and then recording you, right? That's like a breach of your privacy. And probably recording your audio conversation when you're talking to people in the room, he's able to hear, or he could, or for every website you try to visit, he redirects you to like a phishing website or something like that. So you have that under the extensions. And then also you have the option of copying everything that is on the person's clipboard. So that should be under one of the models. I can't recall clearly, but it's under one of the models. Once the attacker executes the command, because he's connected to your browser, he can copy everything that is currently on your clipboard on his screen. So if you have probably you're using a password manager and you copy your password to be pasted within the browser, it's stored on your clipboard temporarily. But when the command is executed, it is dumped on the attacker's screen. So yeah, so that's how Beef works. And then also finally, one of the most interesting features of Beef is the auto pawn feature. So the auto pawn feature in pawn, like not pawn, pawn, P-W-N, and not pawn of chess. Auto pawn feature basically works like this. It would run through a database of known vulnerabilities and then try to use all of those vulnerabilities, tests for each of those vulnerabilities on your web browser. So if it finds a possible vulnerability, it proceeds to exploit it. So the attacker not only has access to your web browser at that point, but he now has access to your computer as a whole. That means he can view all of the files on your laptop, your pictures, your sensitive documents. He can take screenshots of whatever is on your screen. So basically what the attacker has at that point is remote access. Has anybody, if you've used TeamViewer before, then you know how you understand how remote administration tools work.
Exactly.
He can basically start a remote administration session on your laptop, and then he's able to control your mouse. He's able to just see everything you are doing in real time, which is pretty dangerous, especially if you're working in an organization where privacy is paramount. You know, that way you probably be the person that is being used to compromise the organization as an insider threat, although you're not a malicious insider threat, but either way, you're an insider threat. Still haven't gotten this thing to work. I had to close this VMware and then open it again.
That's fine.
Yeah.
So while you're doing that, let's begin to take the questions. Okay. I'll start first with my own question. My own questions here. Please, I can see just one person has dropped the question. If anyone else has more questions, please just drop your questions and we'll take them. So how can you detect that your web browser has been compromised?
Okay, so there's a popular saying in security, prevention is important, but detection is a must. Mm-hmm. But in this case, it is very, very, very important that you prevent it, because detection can be can be sort of tasking, because because you in your mind you just open the web page, but you don't know that your laptop or your browser has been compromised at that point, and then you're going about your regular activities. But one of the ways you can detect or detect these types of things is using probably a security solution, an antivirus solution that has like a browser security feature enabled. When you have that installed on your browser or on your system, you can easily run scans to find popular files that's like those JavaScript files that have been dropped, like dropper files and all that. And then it picks it up. So that way you can eliminate that risk. And another way of knowing if your browser has been compromised is if all of a sudden you're seeing ads popping up, like stuff you didn't sign up for, all of a sudden they're popping up on their own, and then it's almost uncontrollable. Like it keeps popping up, keeps popping up, keeps popping up. Your laptop is freezing unusually. It could be a sign of your processor being used to mine cryptocurrency. So it could be coin, it could be that your system is being used to mine cryptocurrency. So some of those things are indicators of compromise. But in this case, prevention is very, very important. Prevention is paramount.
Okay, thank you so
Yeah.
much for that answer. I also want to ask how can a web server compromise the security of a web browser? So can you sort of have like a server-side script that's not client-side? I know you've described JavaScript, sorry,
Client
JavaScript
side.
files.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, could there also be like web server-side compromise that affects the web browser of the user?
Yes, most definitely. So there are certain servers that have already been compromised, like certain websites, certain web servers that you probably often visit, right? Imagine if, let me look for a popular website. Can you just suggest anyone? Like a website that is often visited by somebody, by people, right? If that website has been compromised, the attacker could modify the web files, go into the web directory, modify the files, and then include his script there. The moment you visit that page, it still requires a client-side interaction. Like somebody has to open that page, somebody has to click on the link. So it's still a two-way thing. It might not be from person to person, but it can also come from a server. You can have a server-side based web browser attack.
Okay, great. Someone just suggested Nairaland, which is a good example.
Yeah.
My next question is, how effective is sandboxing as a means of browser security? So like when you play with these exploits, when you share with this question, I think it's more for cybersecurity professionals than for the average person.
Yeah. So actually, the demo I was going to do was around sandboxing. So the exploits will not work if you're not running your browser with a sandbox.
Okay.
So I intentionally turned off the sandbox for the exploit to work.
Okay.
So it shows the importance of having, sandboxing running on your browser. Try as much as possible. Don't listen to those people that say turn off your firewall, especially those cracked softwares. Avoid them because they'll ask you to turn off your security features, or it won't work if you don't sandbox. Like if you sandbox, so you have to turn off your sandbox. So you have to turn off your firewall and your Windows Defender or any security anti-malware solution you're using, right? So it's very important that you have those security features in place. Always go by this mindset: security first, everything comes after. Just always put security first. Whatever application you're going to use, consider the security implication of installing that application before you go ahead and install it. If it's going to compromise your security, then you're putting yourself at risk that way. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Any luck with your virtual machine?
Yes, the Windows has decided to open.
Oh, great. So maybe one last question of this person before you start the demo. Favor is asking, what's the place of browser fingerprinting in aiding social engineering?
Oh, fingerprinting is gold. Fingerprinting is gold. So basically, if I can fingerprint your browser, I know your browser version. I can
Let's not
easily do
assume
a
people
quick
know what
lookup.
fingerprinting is.
Oh yeah, okay, sorry. Okay, so fingerprinting, so let's bring it into real life. When you use your fingerprint on something, it's a way of identifying you. So by your fingerprint, it can be linked to your name and every other information. So there are certain features of browsers that would help you to know the version, the type of browser that is running. Like Chrome has certain unique features that help applications to recognize that, okay, this is Chrome. So that's where fingerprinting comes into play. And then fingerprinting is a phase of penetration testing. This is a more technical thing. Is a phase of penetration testing. So you gather information about what you're going to attack. So if you don't know the version of browser you want to attack, then you just can't attack it randomly. So it's quite important that, as an attacker, you're able to fingerprint, gather information about your targets before you go on an attack from an attacking standpoint. But from a defensive standpoint, you should also, am I disconnected?
You're not disconnected, you're online.
Oh, I thought I was muted. Okay, so from a defensive standpoint, try to identify those applications that can help attackers fingerprint whatever application you are running. Like, as a cyber defender, you want to prevent banner grabbing. So banner grabbing is when somebody is able to detect that there's a database running on a server, or there is an application version of a certain application running on a server. So as a defender, it is important to, you know, prevent fingerprinting, and as an attacker, it's important to fingerprint applications.
Okay, great. So you can go ahead with the demo.
Okay. Can you, let me share my screen now.
Yeah.
Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay. Let me show it real quick. Okay, can everyone see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
All right. You know why this keeps freezing? Okay. So now I have logged into Beef. Beef is browser exploitation framework, as I previously mentioned. So you have when your victim has clicked on a link, they would appear here under online browsers. So you'll be able to see the person, like the person's browser, everything about them, and then you can execute commands. But I haven't hooked a browser yet. So now I have a URL. The URL, please pardon me, it's my IP address. So what I'm doing is I have a web server running here, hosting a malicious page, Udemy. And then I'm going to open it on a Windows system. So the moment I open it on a Windows system, here you see that the Windows system is online, and then it has opened the link. Oh, this is still loading. No. I want to log in as a different user. Take time. All right. I'm still logged in as. Why does it keep logging me as admin? It's pardon me. It's going to be over in a bit. Okay, so can everybody observe what you can see on my screen? Now, it says you're using an unsupported command line flag, no sandbox. So I'm basically running this browser in non-sandbox environment. So it puts me at risk security-wise, and it could allow exploitations to be very, very easy. But what happens in a real life scenario is when a malicious file is going to be sent to you, automatically there'll be a command that would disable your sandbox. So it doesn't require me to physically disable it. So let me close this. So I'm posting a malicious Udemy page here. 192.168. 145. All right. So what comes up now? You see Udemy, right? This is regular Udemy. Probably I've sent this to somebody who is pretty much interested in Udemy and likes free courses. So the moment they open this page, their browser session has been hooked to my Kali. Can everybody see my window screen, or it's just me that see my screen?
We can see the Udemy web browser, the Udemy page on your web browser.
Oh,
yeah.
Perfect. Now I'll switch back to. Looks like the. All right, so Zoom is interfering with me switching between my VMs.
Okay, so this is what I would suggest. Maybe we can make this video at a later time, the demo part, and post it on our YouTube page, and then share the link with other people.
Okay.
Yeah. So
right.
let's take the questions, and then we can call it a day. You've done amazing. I'm sure people are going to have more questions, but this is the second question from someone who just joined. So if I notice that my browser is attacked, can I just switch to the other web browser and proceed with my activities, ignoring the attacked web browser? I think that's an amazing.
If I notice my web browser has been attacked, can I move to another web browser and proceed with my activities?
So like maybe I was using Chrome, I noticed that Chrome was attacked. I'll just move on to Firefox. I'll just close Chrome and move on to Firefox.
Well, actually, how hooking works is when you close the page, I believe that the hook will be disconnected, like on that browser.
Okay.
But your browser has been fingerprinted already. So I already know that that's a version of browser. I already have information about your browser. Probably I've even gotten information I need. But yes, it helps. But it doesn't mean that Firefox also wouldn't be vulnerable. Firefox as well would be vulnerable. So it's you're better off trying to prevent it from happening. You understand, by not installing malicious plugins. I think I have that in the slides. Let me just share my screen and then show it in the slides. Some of the things I recommend you should do to stay safe. So you don't install malicious plugins. Watch the permissions you give applications. Applications that have no business with a particular functionality of your laptop, don't give it to it. Why? Don't allow everything. Like every time you just allow. Don't allow everything. Avoid saving passwords in your browser, and also use additional authentication factors. When you are not using an extension, uninstall it. So I have been in a proctored exam where I had to install an extension that shared my screen. So once I was done with that exam, I uninstalled it immediately because I don't want anybody having remote access to my screen sharing through my browser. And then keep your browser updated. And also in the case of social engineering and web browser attacks, you want to always scan links that have been sent to you, especially when they come from an untrusted source. Even when they have come from a trusted source, sometimes that person might have been compromised and then it's being used to get to you.
Exactly.
So you want to scan, like, zero trust, my friends. You don't want to have you don't want to trust everybody and then just be clicking every link you get. So I also highlighted some useful sites you can use in scanning URLs. You have URL scan, VirusTotal, Hybrid Analysis, and Joe Sandbox. So try to check them out and look at how they work and make the most of it, and then stay safe out there. So yeah, that's
awesome.
it.
Awesome.
Okay.
So another key thing someone is asking here, Nanban. Nanban is asking, if you are unable to prevent the browser attack, what are the ways in which you could mitigate it?
If we are unable to prevent it, what are the ways we are able to mitigate it? I highlighted some of the things you can do in mitigating them, right? So, okay, you've been attacked. What can you do? First thing, change your passwords, especially if you notice people logging in from unknown locations. You understand? Probably your password have been compromised. Change your password. Upgrade your browser if there's a new version of the browser. Try to install or try to get a security solution that protects your browser in order for it not to happen again. Because what they did has been done, but now you have to recover as part
Give
of
us an
your...
example of such a security solution.
Okay, an example of such a security solution would be, most antivirus security solutions come with them, although you have to pay for them. You have Kaspersky web protection, you have Symantec web protection, you have Norton's web protection. Even also, yeah. So those are most of the security solutions I'm aware of that provide browser-based protection. But in the end, you can put in more work at preventing it.
Okay.
You understand? Just put in more work at preventing it from happening by...
Okay, so I have a 2-in-1 question here from me. The first part of the question is, what are the dangers of using Internet Explorer browser? You've shared one of them, but I just wanted to maybe talk an enveloping, like umbrella approach to answering the question. And then what are the risks in enabling Flash in the web browser?
All right. So for the Internet Explorer, Internet Explorer was actually, the last version is Internet Explorer 11, and I believe they stopped Internet Explorer in 2011. I guess. I don't know. Yeah, in 2014 rather, not 2011, 2014. That's when they stopped Internet Explorer. And I'm sure that between that time and now, there have been some security vulnerabilities that have been discovered. 0 days all over. And it's not being supported by Microsoft anymore. So you're at a very, very big risk of being compromised when you stick to using Internet Explorer, especially Internet Explorer 8. That's the biggest, that's the worst, because you have dozens and dozens and dozens of exploits that can be used to compromise Internet Explorer 8. And also, speaking of enabling Flash, when you don't trust a website, even when you trust a website, or especially when you don't trust a website, don't enable Flash without your permission. You're better off granting permission to it. And using modern browsers, by default, enabling Flash is disabled. So you can't enable Flash unless you want to allow that particular website to use it. If it's a requirement for, let's say, an online exam you have to do, and they're like, oh, we need you to enable it for you to write this exam, yes, go ahead and enable it. But then if it's a random application that you don't even know, maybe like a crack or a free version of an application that you want to have access to, and it's asking you, you need to enable Flash to use this application, please don't. There is no harm in telling it a no, because most of us just say yes to almost everything, even without reading properly. So we need to read and pay attention to those little details, because those little details are what cyber criminals are aware that we often ignore. So they play on that as part of their social engineering scheme to get into our web browsers or get into our systems. So we need to pay more attention to those types of things. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Toby. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Thank you so much, Toby. My last question, and if you have any question, it's a good time because we're closing out very soon. My last question is what are the dangers? Sorry, is clearing your web browser a good security practice? If so, how often should this be done?
All right. Clearing your web browser. It is important to clear your web browser, especially your session cookies. Let me use an example. you're logged into Facebook. Once you're logged into Facebook, your session is stored. That is why you can open a new Facebook tab and you are still logged in. You understand? You are logged in on Facebook on 2 tabs within the same browser. Now, that is possible because your cookie and your session ID is stored. So an attacker gains access to your browser, he's able to get your session cookies, and then he uses it. So he doesn't need to log in. He just use a cookie manager. There are tools like cookie managers that are able to do cookie replay attacks. He puts it, enters your cookie, and then he logs in, and then he has access to your session. So as long as you've not cleared your session cookie, that attacker still has access to your session. So that's what we call session hijacking in summary. So it is quite important that you clear your cookies, clear your browser history, because some of those malicious files that have been dropped, right, they form part of those things that you clear, the cache that you're clearing. That is where the malicious files are stored. So when you clear them, you're clearing out the malicious files, and then an attacker doesn't have access to your browser anymore, or doesn't have access to your session. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. That was quite well explained. Thank you so much for explaining everything. We've run out of time. I'm really sorry, guys. We will not be able to take all of these beautiful questions you're sending in anymore. But I'm going to send them to Toby, and then he would answer them, and maybe we can email the answers to you. Toby, thank you so much for your time today, and for taking out time to do this. We are going to be expecting a video from you with the chemical side of things. But please, guys, follow us on social media, and we really like to hear from you in terms of reviews of how this webinar was impactful for you. Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And our handle across board is No Go for Maga. Please just follow us, and of course share what we're putting out, so more people in your sphere of influence can understand, the risk and of course the threats, and protect themselves. Thank you very much. We've come to the end of another episode of Hood of Chat series, and we're looking forward to hosting you again on Friday next week, same time. Thank you so much, Toby, and thank you for everyone. Thank you to everyone who has joined in. Bye for now.
All right. Bye, guys.